Hey everyone, got Adam here from Socedo. I'm with Asim today. And today we're going to dive into a blog post that Sprout Social just published yesterday on the Sprout Social blog. It's called 11 Marketing Trends to Commit to in 2018. It's by Dominique Jackson, who's a digital marketer over there on the Sprout Social team. And it really caught my eye because he's mentioned some things that we've talked about a lot, but actually a lot of things too that I haven't heard from a lot of these kind of 2018 predictions before. And a lot of the examples that Dominique is diving into, especially on the social media side, are from a B2C perspective. But I was really curious if we could get down to the kernel of what he's talking about. How can we start to apply some of these trends into the B2B space? So we're just going to focus on a few of them today, but there's 11 of those over there on the Sprout Social blog. And Asim, the first one that I want to talk about is this idea of native storytelling.
Right.
Now, typically as marketers, when we think about native content, we're talking about just content that we're hosting on a platform. But in this case, we're talking about the fact that social media itself can be a hub for content.
Sure.
It's not just a place to drive traffic back to your website or
Yep.
back to your blog. Things like native video on these platforms, as well as user-generated content, kind of creates their own little communities.
Yeah.
So how can B2B marketers leverage these places instead of just driving back to gated content or blogs?
Yeah. I mean, this is, I think, such a major and important trend. So much of us have thought about social media as get the click and drive somebody back to your website.
Yeah.
And in B2B, we go even further, right? Like the status quo today is drive somebody to your site, have them fill out a form, and then they get the piece of content. That's all changing. You really have to switch your mindset, especially for B2B marketers, to think about how do you just get value out there in the feed. If they don't click on your link, that's okay. But if you can earn their time and their attention in the feed itself, you're going to win an advocate and you're going to win somebody that may come to your website down the road. So think about that. I think in B2C marketing on social media, Instagram was really the driver of this because Instagram really doesn't allow links in the post. And so capturing traffic on Instagram was never really kind of the main goal. But marketers realized how much attention they can capture in the feed on Instagram, and now that's going out to every other social network. The ability to capture attention through this video, we don't necessarily need you coming back to our site. We're not hosting this video on our site. We're not putting this webinar behind a gated landing page.
Right.
That's important for every B2B marketer to think about. I absolutely agree.
Now, native storytelling, this idea of really building an audience on these platforms works because the engagement rate is so high.
That's right.
On social, your reach can get really far. Now, as marketers, we've tended to try to hack that over the years, which is typical. We can't really do that anymore. So that brings us to point number 3 in Dominique's post, which is optimizing for humans, not robots. And basically the point is these algorithms keep changing over and over and over again on social networks. We can't really keep up. But the best marketers are realizing that when you just focus on actually connecting with your audience, the algorithm's going to change a million times, but your content's still going to get there.
Yeah.
So what should we be looking for, and how can we start to develop early indicators to know that what we're doing is actually engaging people?
Yeah, this is huge. I mean, as marketers, especially on digital and social, I think we've gotten really used to just looking at the metrics. And what we don't realize is that the comments, the direct messages, the responses that you get, that's where you're really going to learn whether you're winning or you're losing. So Adam comes to me every single week and provides a report. What was our engagement on social media? Which post did the best by the metrics? Which one's got the most clicks, the most views, the most engagements? That's all great. But what I really look for at the end of the day is what are you guys talking about in the feed? So what are you mentioning or replying on one of our videos or one of our posts? The biggest that I understand really success is when somebody retweets one of our posts but then puts their own commentary on it. Because then I really know like that piece of content is resonating. Maybe it didn't get the most likes or clicks, but I know that piece of content is super highly engaged. Same thing in the DMs, right? We so often just look at how many people clicked on my link in the DM, but those conversations are important. And I think for B2B marketers, this is something that we can even lean into further because in B2B marketing, it's all about relationships. It's all about conversations and shaking hands. So don't forget that when you get that DM response, it's meaningful. Even if it's just a thank you for sharing, somebody took the time to go and write that to you and respond. It's not just about the amount of clicks that you drove, but it's about those conversations and that engagement.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's continue talking about optimizing. Number 6 on this blog post is all about marketers starting to trend back to the top of the funnel. So in the B2B world especially, this is a tough kind of pill to swallow because we think about content and social as what's the conversion, how many leads did I get into my database, but we're going to need to start to come up with a new set of metrics to really measure success on social media. So how do we think about social as a top of funnel channel?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it is a top of funnel channel, right? That's one of the biggest powers of social media is that you get access to an audience that you may not have already had, right? I mean, think about it. People are spending hours scrolling through their feeds. These social networks have basically built this machine that allows us to capture attention and get our message in front of people. So it absolutely is. I mean, when you think about social media at first, it is about top of funnel. That's where a lot of the power lies. But it also lies in just being a communication channel. Right? Think about when you're posting to Facebook, you're engaging with friends and family. These aren't new people, right? They're not at the top of your funnel. They're in the middle or the bottom of your funnel, right? You already have a relationship with them. You're just strengthening that through social media, through the engagement. So it doesn't just have to be top of funnel. There's a ton of power there to capture a new audience that you can't get elsewhere. But let's be honest, social media as a communication channel is winning. It's better than email. It's better than the phone call. If you're engaging, commenting, talking to people, messaging people on social, the likelihood that you get a response is really high. And that's a great way to move people through the middle or the bottom of your funnel.
Absolutely. And just on that point, does that mean that we should be doing things any differently on social media as we go forward now?
Not really. I mean, I think we've always thought about social media as a top of the funnel exercise for marketers, and I think it absolutely still is that. It's a great way to capture attention. I think where marketers probably fail, and the power here is really for the B2B marketers, it's in that middle and bottom of the funnel. Use it more for that. Realize that all of those people that are following you now have the opportunity to be in your funnel if you keep on posting good and relevant content. Every single person who responds to you, you should respond to them. Keep that conversation going. I know it can be tedious, but these are all sales leads at the end of the day. Continue to engage. Get a sales rep on it. Get somebody on it who's already used to dealing with these relationships. It's a great way to move people through the funnel. And we do the same thing with our current customers. I build a list of all of our current customers on Twitter and make sure I'm just communicating with them, engaging with them, keeping the comments and the engagement going because that's how you win loyalty and advocacy at the end of the day.
Sure. Now, the last one that I want to touch on is number 11 on Sprout Social's list of 11 marketing trends, and it's building brand communities. Now, we've seen this work really well in the B2C space with, obviously video game companies from Microsoft's Xbox to Sony's PlayStation creating their actual community worlds and whether it's forums or in-app kind of gamification experiences. We're seeing even retail brands start to replicate some of this as well. How can B2B brands actually create an engaged community around their brand?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's start with the goal, right? So people like social proof and credibility. Nobody likes just hearing from a marketer or a salesperson that their product is the best. But when you hear it from somebody else, that's when you know that product and service is really good. That's what these communities are all about. So it starts with how many followers do you have? Yeah, the more followers you have, the more credibility, the more social proof you're going to have. When you're posting something and somebody is responding to it, that's social proof. You're building a community. But you also want to get deeper into the engagement and the messages. And so as people are commenting, as people are sharing, encourage that. When somebody shares something of yours, say thank you for it. Make sure they do that again and again and again because every time somebody shares or comments on one of your pieces of content, that's an ability to get social proof. It's an ability for somebody else to join into that conversation, and that's where the real community building happens. So start at the top, right? It starts with your followers. It starts with how much engagement you're getting per post, but really where that real community building is happening is in the comments and the messages and continuing those conversations so that other people can hop in and you can get more advocacy from people who aren't even within your company.
Oh, I love that. I think that's a great place to end this. As Asim said, starts at the top, and then we can grow that engagement. So starting at the top of the funnel, check out Socedo. We do have a free trial to build that engaged audience on social media, www.socedo.com. And then check out Sprout Social's blog on these 11 marketing trends. They're all really great tips for all marketers. Sprout Social blog, and I'll be posting that link in the comments.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.